Hey everyone, it's Allie and welcome to my channel. So today I figured I would just film a little bit of a life update, answer some questions that you guys had asked about me and Ryan since we did just celebrate our 5-year anniversary. Okay, before we get into anything, I just have to apologize. One, because I posted a couple weeks ago that I was gonna start posting 3 times a week again. I think I had done this maybe a year and a half ago or something. It's been a while. And I just felt like, okay, let's get back into the 3 times a week. I want my Monday videos to be very focused on thrifting, and if I make reselling content, it'll be those days. And then Wednesday will be more home content because I've been wanting to incorporate more decluttering, organization, and just showing you guys rooms in my home that I've been working on. So those were planned to be Wednesday uploads, and then Friday would be more lifestyle, vlogs, days in my life, things like that. And then I feel like this happens every time I post something on the community post, so I should probably just stop doing it. Life just comes and foils my plans. And I don't know if you can hear in my voice, and I do apologize if my voice breaks or I just sound weird or I'm not coherent, because I am sick. I've been sick for the last 5 days. The first 3, I could not get out of bed. I was such a wreck. And the last 2, I've been trying to get back and get some stuff done, but I get so exhausted. I feel very hot. I don't feel mentally right, so hopefully I can get this video done. But anyway, yeah, I had planned on uploading more, and then just life sickness got in the way, so probably the next couple of weeks I will just do my typical Wednesday, Friday uploads, but then hopefully by the end of the month I will have moved back into 3 uploads a week, but yeah, we'll see how that goes. But let me know. I've been hearing a lot of people have gotten sick. I think it's just a cold. I just have very severe cold symptoms. The fatigue and achiness has been unfreaking real to the point where, like I said, I feel like I can't get out of bed. So hopefully you guys are all staying healthy. I feel like I'm coming out of it. Today is Tuesday. I think by Thursday, hopefully I'll be pretty much back to normal, but yeah, I have missed working and making content and doing all the different things I do, and I now feel very behind. Thankfully, the weather is warming up here in Ohio. I'm looking outside to a beautiful spring day. Hopefully I can get up the energy to go for a walk later. But I'm thankful for this new season because I am personally just a lot mentally better in the spring and summer. I certainly suffer from seasonal affect disorder. My mood just drops when I do not get sunlight. And if you guys have been following me, you know this has just been a tough season of life for me anyway. If you saw my Somerville, South Carolina vlogs, you know that both of my grandparents passed away while I was on that trip. And I did know it was coming somewhat around that time, and I do feel content with the time I was able to spend with them at the end. And of course it was so weird and I felt strange to be on vacation, to be in a different area when my grandparents passed away. But I am grateful that I did have the time down there to process. And as my mom said, my grandparents were so excited for us to go. I was able to see them just a few weeks before. But this has been a process. I would say for the last 6 months or so, they both really were declining. My gram had specific health issues that there was just a time limit for, and she was in a lot of pain and discomfort this last year, really the last 10 years to some extent. But this last year had been increasingly more difficult for her, and so I was thankful that she did not have to suffer anymore, even though I think about her and my pap both every day, miss them both every day. My pap had different health issues over the years. Overall, he was a healthy man, but he had cancer. He had I think 2 heart attacks at different points in his later years, and he was 90 when he passed away. He would have been 91 next month in June. So his body really was just old and tired, and he probably, I would think, would have held on for maybe another year or a couple years even if my grandma was still alive. But they truly just had the best relationship. Not that they didn't bicker, they were known for bickering with each other, but they showed the most unconditional love for each other, and we knew if my grandma was going to pass first, he would not be far along. And I think his body knew as she was kind of entering into her last month of life, like, okay, it's time for us to get ready to go as well. And he passed almost perfectly a week after her, and I don't think he thought that that was fast enough. But because they both knew before they did pass away that they would die pretty close to each other, they had planned to be cremated, and we actually got a urn that was not like just one urn together, but it was like two attached urns. So we were able to put their ashes in their own separate compartments, but they were attached together, and we were able to have a really beautiful funeral for them, I think about 2 weeks after my pap passed away in the middle of April. And it was really lovely. We were able to just have the one event. A lot of people came to support us, and so many people said what an impact my grandparents had on their life. So I was personally very grateful that we did have some time before the funeral and that we only had to do it once, because it was difficult enough on that day. I cannot even imagine what a mess I would have been if it was just several days after their passing. So I am personally very grateful for that. But yeah, all that to say, it has been just a tough 6 months, I would say, in particular for me mentally, knowing that they were declining, not knowing when they would pass away. I feel like once we hit fall, it was kind of like it could be any time, any week. It wouldn't have been a shock at that point. And that is very mentally and emotionally draining, never knowing when the last time you're going to see someone is, and just physically exhausting as well, because they did live in Pittsburgh. They lived in the same house their entire marriage, over 65 years, I think. But we did spend a lot of time in Pittsburgh doing that drive, being there for 24, 48 hours, coming back to Columbus, Ohio. So that was very exhausting in every single way. And also, I turned 30 last October, and I really didn't have an issue with like turning 30. I didn't really care about turning 30, but I think turning that age specifically is like, you should have everything together, your life should look a certain way, things like that. And that's kind of brought some difficulties that I've been having with like thoughts about career, thoughts about my family, my personal family, my family with Ryan, to the surface. And I'll talk about that more in a little bit, about our struggle to grow a family. But yeah, I feel like ever since the fall, I've not been in the best mental state. But with spring coming, I do feel some hope on the future. I'll share some things about that, but things are looking up. So I feel like I am coming out of this difficult season of life, which has been exhausting in every way. Oh my goodness, would I be more concise if I wasn't sick? Probably not. Maybe I'd even talk more. But let me go ahead and answer some of these questions, because I think I will be able to kind of give you more life updates on the way. Oh, but first, because I probably will forget to mention this if I don't do it now, in honor of my grandparents and the house that they lived in, that was a very safe space for me. It was kind of like an island away from reality. I feel like I did get my first tattoo. It might be my last tattoo because I'm not really happy with it. And as you guys know, as you can see, I'm a very pale person. So the tattoo is just very stark against my pale skin. And I just don't really like it that much. I don't regret getting the tattoo. It is a constant reminder of my grandparents, but I had originally thought, you know, maybe I'd get a few on my wrists, I'd get a few on the inside of my arms, but I think this might be it. We'll see if I change my mind as this heals. But I got 39 in my grandma's handwriting, and 39 was my grandparents' house number, and as I said, the house means a lot to me, and obviously my grandparents mean that much more to me. So I felt like just these two numbers really represent the safe space of their home, which represents a lot of happy times for me, a lot of holidays spent with my family, as well as my gram and my pap. So I'll put some B-roll so you can see like a good image of it. But the tattoo artist, she really made the 3 very thick, and then the 9 is more what I wanted the 3 to be like. And I realized as the person was tattooing me that she had only been tattooing for about a month. And, you know, she had done a lot of practice and she had experience tattooing eyebrows and things like that, more like cosmetic tattooing. And I figured it's just 2 numbers, like, it can't really be that bad. And it still cost me like $85 for 2 little numbers. But yeah, right now I'm not super happy with how the tattoo looks. I am thankful that she captured the handwriting well for the most part. But yeah, I just don't love how it looks right now. I was hoping it would be a bit thinner. So we'll just see, I guess, if I get more in the future. But I do like having that reminder permanently on my body. Okay, now we will get into some of these questions. So I had said, Ryan and I are going to be celebrating our 5-year anniversary. Do you have any questions for us? So these are more focused on me and Ryan, but also about our life together and some life updates. So figured I would just put it all in this video. Ryan and I did celebrate our 5-year anniversary on April 28th, but just getting around to answering these questions. So from Melinda, huge shout out to Melinda. She's been a great support of my channel. How and when did you meet? So Ryan and I met in college, you know, nothing too crazy there, but I think it was a God moment for sure that we did end up together, because Ryan is actually 2 years younger than me. He was a sophomore when I was a senior. We both went to St. Francis University, which is a small private Catholic college in very rural Pennsylvania. There really is nothing around there, but I had such a wonderful experience going to that school. It was the perfect fit for me. I became an RA, a resident assistant, when I was a junior at St. Francis, and that was a great experience for me. I met some really good friends that'll be my friends for my life, and I did ultimately end up meeting my husband. So that first year, he was not an RA with me because he was only a freshman. But my senior year, I did meet him at the beginning of the year because we spent, I think, about 2 weeks before students came. Before the fall semester, we would have RA training, and it was, you know, a mix of like boring lecture type things, but then we did also have a lot of time to spend bonding and spend getting to know each other. So during that time I met Ryan, there were a lot of guys that came in. They were sophomores at the time, and they just had a lot of energy. They were a lot of fun. And so a couple of my girlfriends and I, we were all seniors. We just became friendly with a lot of them. We would play volleyball a lot. So I knew him like as a member of that group, and I remember thinking that he was cute and funny and all of this stuff, but he had a girlfriend at the time, so of course, you know, I wasn't even thinking about that at all. So I knew him a little bit through then, but as we went through the fall semester, I didn't really see him a whole heck of a lot as we went our different ways and were responsible for our own buildings and things like that. But what's funny is I did become a little bit closer with another one of those guys in that sophomore group. And what's even funnier still is that my husband Ryan was roommates with this guy as a freshman. So he did know him fairly well through being a roommate and through being RAs together. This guy's name is Ryan too, so a little confusing, but we'll just call him Brian for the purposes of making this story not that confusing. So Brian and I started spending more time together, and he had like specifically asked me like to be his girlfriend quite early on in that semester, and I said, like, I don't even know you that well. I like you as a person, but I definitely want to spend more time with you to see if I like actually want to be in a relationship with you. So we did spend the next couple months just hanging out. We would often hang out with like a couple other of his friends, but Ryan, my future husband, rarely hung out with us. They were like friends, Ryan and Brian, but not like uber close besties. So I thought things were actually going pretty well. This guy Brian was like very introverted, very opposite of my husband, but I did like his personality. He had a very dry sense of humor. I thought he just was fun to be around, funny. There were some red flags looking back, but at the time I was content. And I remember saying to my mom, like, oh, I'm probably gonna date this guy in like November after it had been a couple months, and nothing really happened. I remember like really realizing just how introverted this guy was, and I, believe it or not, am a very introverted person myself. I will be very chatty with somebody else who is chatty, like I get along very well with extroverted people, hence my husband. But if I'm with somebody else that's introverted, I just like don't know what to say sometimes. So I didn't like that I had to like really cover for his severe introvertedness, like when we were in a group. But ultimately, I did like the guy. I didn't really see anything too wrong with it. But then that's where the God moment really came in. I remember it was like right before Thanksgiving break, and this was like when I had said to my mom, I think I'm gonna date this guy, like maybe you'll meet him over Christmas break or whatever. And all of a sudden, I just felt this God moment that was just like, no, this guy is not for you. And I thought it was because I was graduating and I would have to deal with a long distance relationship and all of this stuff. It just wasn't like the right time. He wasn't the right fit. And so that's what I told him, and he did not take it very well. So I still feel badly about that. I never wanted to hurt him or anything like that, but that was just kind of the situation. I just didn't feel like it was the right time for me to enter into a relationship. So then we go on Thanksgiving, whatever, and just a few weeks later, before the semester ends, like in the second week of December, I hear through the grapevine that my future husband, Ryan, and his girlfriend have broken up. He was dating this girl who was 2 years younger than him. They had been together for, I think, about 2 years at that point, and she cheated on him, and that was why they broke up. So I saw him in our, like, RA storage area, and I just gave him a hug, and I said, like, I'm so sorry that you are going through this, like, that sucks, you know? It wasn't anything crazy that I said, but I guess for Ryan it really meant a lot, because then he went home and like, he's a dramatic person. His mom, my mother-in-law, told me that he just like laid on the ground and cried, and she thought it was because of the situation with his ex-girlfriend, that she cheated on him, and he was upset because he felt like I was the person that he should be with, and that it was just not gonna happen because he knew about the whole situation with Brian and that I was graduating and all of this stuff. So it was just kind of like a weird mess. Like we both were just like kind of in a weird spot at that time. But then when we came back for that second semester, my senior year, his sophomore year, we started spending more time together, just like in a group. I don't even really remember how that happened. I think we just had mutual friends that we were hanging out with, and there were probably like 6 or 7 of us that we would watch movies and just like eat together at our cafeteria. It's a small school, so we just had so many overlapping friends that we ended up kind of like in that same friend group that semester. And I did really start to like Ryan more than a friend after a month or so, and he felt the same way, which I did not know at the time. We just were like hanging out in a group. But then the kicker kind of came around Valentine's Day. He gave me a Valentine's gift, but then he also gave like one of my good girlfriends that hung out with us a Valentine's gift as well, and it just was like very confusing. And long story short, there were like rumors that were starting then amongst our friends, like, oh, they like each other, they don't like each other, and it was kind of causing some issues with some of my girlfriends who liked him, and it was just like this whole thing. But ultimately it came out that he did like me, and I was like, okay, I like you too. And we did start dating March 1st, so just a couple weeks after that. Sorry, I'm like really sweating because I think I've got a fever going right now. But the rest is history, I guess. We started dating that March of my senior year, and then I went to grad school for the next 2 years. I was about an hour and a half away from him, so it wasn't like a terrible long distance, but we both were super broke, and that was just an adventure. Grad school, dating, and then we got engaged after 2 years, and then married a year later and settled here in Columbus, which is where I've lived the majority of my life. Wow, what a story. I did not think that was going to take me so long to say. Next question from Melinda is, what does Ryan do for work? So this is kind of a story, and I swear I'll sum this up. He thought he was going to be a medical doctor. He thought he was going to end up being a surgeon of some sort. And he is from such a small rural town in Pennsylvania that the fact that he wanted to be a doctor made like the newspaper as a kid. So very different from where I grew up here in Columbus. I think probably about 25 people that I went to high school with out of 200 became medical doctors. So it's not that like crazy when somebody around me does something big like that. It's kind of expected, which there are definitely cons to that mindset of like you have to be super high achieving in your career. But anyway, that's kind of like the mindset that I grew up with. Not that crazy if somebody was going to be a doctor, but for him and his town, it was like literally newsworthy, the fact that he wanted to be a doctor. And he also became connected with this guy who was a very successful doctor in his area, and that guy served as a mentor, and Ryan was able to do a lot of shadowing and things like that in high school and in college. So he thought, you know, I'm gonna be a doctor, I'm gonna eventually be a surgeon, and that is my life. And he does absolutely enjoy medicine. He still enjoys reading about it. But as time went on, and after a lot of reflection about what he really wanted in life, at this point, we were getting engaged, we were looking at the next stages of life. He decided that he just really didn't want to take on all that schooling, all that debt. He was not passionate enough about being a doctor to go down that route. So then he kind of had like a little bit of a crisis, because for so long, ever since he was a kid, that was what he felt like he should do. He felt like people expected him to do that, and he needed to kind of refigure that out. So once he graduated with his bachelor's in pre-medicine, he did go work in a microbiology lab at Ohio State once we had settled here in Columbus. And he didn't really like that much. It wasn't paying very much. He was very stressed about how he could support us as a family. I was also going through a career crisis at that time because I was finishing up my graduate degree in counseling, and I realized I really didn't want to be a counselor. So we were both just a mess. And it was very stressful at that time just to think about like financially how we were going to make it. And at that time, my dad did have a trash business that he started here in Columbus, and he thought Ryan would actually be a really good sales rep for the company. And he was right, because Ryan is certainly a born sales rep. He doesn't have that business degree or anything. And he says, you know, my life would probably have been a lot easier in college if I had chosen the business route at that time rather than pre-medicine. But, you know, life is a roller coaster and you never know where you're going to get. But yes, Ryan was very great at being a sales rep. And so he did that for about 3 years. He worked for my dad's company, and that's a whole other story. But my dad did end up selling that company. So when my dad's company sold, Ryan and another former employee decided to create their own business, which is more of a trash brokerage. So basically they are like the middleman. So they don't have like their own trucks or anything like that. They don't have drivers. They work with larger corporations that have many different sites. And so instead of like if they need a new dumpster or something, instead of calling a company like Waste Management that has the drivers, they would call Ryan, and Ryan then calls the trash companies to deal with it. So basically these companies are paying Ryan and his partner's company a little bit more so they don't have to deal with the day-to-day issues that is the world of trash. So yeah, it's been almost 1.5 years of that, which is crazy, of them working for themselves. And it's gone really well so far. There's definitely challenges just with working for yourself. It's a little bit scary. You never know if something's going to happen, but it's certainly a risk that seems to be paying off. And I am very, very grateful because Ryan does make enough money that I don't need to make a certain amount myself, which has allowed me to pursue these more creative endeavors, and I am very grateful for that. But yeah, essentially Ryan is a sales rep, and if you've seen him on these videos, I'm sure you can understand that he just has really the perfect personality for that, because he really is very kind and charming and genuine, but he also can be aggressive when he needs to be. And that's what I say to him, like, I would be the worst sales rep ever, because I feel like I could form the relationships with people, but I am not aggressive at all. I do not have a dominant personality at all, so I would just not be able to actually like close any deals, I feel like. But there are a lot of benefits to Ryan's job. Like when we went down to South Carolina for 2 weeks, he didn't take any days off. He can't really take any days off. That's a big con of being a sales rep, especially if you do have the business yourself, work for yourself. You really have no days off, but you can be flexible. And so we were able to go down to South Carolina for 2 weeks, and he was able to spend, you know, some time in the morning, some time in the evening, answer calls as he needed to, but we were able to still have a nice time down there. So I'm really grateful, because my dad, he made his own business. He has worked very, very hard his whole life, but a lot of times that took him away from home. And I'm so grateful that Ryan can also have his own business, but he is at home all the time, and we spend a lot of time together. Okay, so Melinda also asked, if you feel like talking about it, how is your fertility journey going? So Ryan and I have been married for 5 years, and we don't have any children yet, and that is certainly not by choice. If I could have like planned everything perfectly, and I did used to be more of a type A person, which this has been a good lesson for me, because I've realized that you just kind of have to go with the flow with things. You have to trust God. God has his own timeline. I have my own timeline. They never really match up for the most part, but I've gotten a lot better about just kind of attempting to be content where I am at life, because if I could have like perfectly planned my life. I did get married at 25, which I feel like if I could choose when I was like 18 when I would get married, I probably would say about 25. But I probably would have said, oh, I would have my first kid at like 27, then 29, then maybe twins at 31, and then be done with it. And I will be 31 this year. So yeah, life has not gone the way I hoped or expected as far as a family, and that has certainly caused me a lot of grief. It's come and gone over the last 5 years. I feel like 2 years in was a really hard point, because although we had never prevented a pregnancy, it was kind of about a year and a half in that I started really tracking my cycle and everything and really trying to get pregnant, and that month after month of disappointment was really, really, really hard. And that was also the point where other friends were having their first kids. And so like 2 years in was actually like a really mentally difficult point for me. I was working in a school and literally 9 teachers were pregnant, or the men were working at the school and their wives were pregnant. So there was like a lot of like, yay, babies all around. And that was just like, you know, daggers in the heart that whole year. That was really a tough part of working in that environment. And then as I kind of determined that I had certain health issues that were preventing this pregnancy, but still not exactly sure what that was, I almost got a little bit more content. I definitely was in a better mental spot than I had been like that year 2 to 3, but I still wasn't exactly sure like what was wrong with me. I was having a hard time like getting anywhere with my gynecologist. And even though I was still very sad to not have kids, to not be getting pregnant, I feel like with any form of grief, you kind of get to a point where you just like have to be content. You have to live your life. You can't be like crying about it every day. And that's where I had kind of been from, I feel like, about year 3 to like 4.5. But like I said earlier, with turning 30, it has kind of like really been mentally difficult for me again. And especially now, I think a lot of my friends were waiting until they were 29.5, 30 to get pregnant. So at this point, many of my friends have a child / are pregnant / have 3 kids. So that is very, very hard for me to know that pretty much everyone has started their family at this point, and I am not pregnant. And even though I'm so happy that none of my friends that I know of, none of my close friends at least, have had to deal with infertility struggles as I have, it can feel very isolating. It can feel very lonely, because I just don't know anyone personally who is in a similar situation, and I have certainly thought about joining some different groups, and I probably will, honestly, because I feel like I am kind of at that mental point where I just need to be around people for a limited amount of time that understand the struggle. And I pray for you very much if you have gone through this struggle, if you are going through this struggle, because it's not that rare to have infertility issues. So I know at least one of you guys who's watching this video has struggled or is currently struggling, and know that I'm praying for you. I pray every day for myself, selfishly, but also for anyone who is struggling with infertility, because it's a whole different kind of grief, and many people just don't understand, which I'm very grateful for. I will say I'm very, very, very thankful that I have not had to struggle with miscarriage, because I've heard stories of people who they just have miscarriage after miscarriage after miscarriage after miscarriage, and I know myself, that would wreck me. Like, I would be such an unbelievable mess every day of my life if I was suffering miscarriage after miscarriage. So even though I've not been able to get pregnant, I am very thankful that I've not had to have a miscarriage. So like I said, I felt like I wasn't really getting anywhere with my gynecologist, and for a lot of reasons, I am not going to be doing IVF, and I'm not even going to get into all of that, but for me, I just want to be a mom. I am not like dead set on having a biological child. I just want to have kids in some way, shape, or form, and thankfully Ryan does have the heart for adoption as well. But a few months ago, probably 3 months ago now, I did start working with a hormone specialist, and we've done a lot of very in-depth blood work, and I have figured some things out, so that's good. Basically, I have super high estrogen, super high cortisol, and very low progesterone, and the person said I have probably not ovulated in a long time, many, many years, so that's why I've not even gotten pregnant to have a miscarriage. And I also very likely have endometriosis as well as PCOS. There are a lot of overlapping symptoms there, but probably have both, to be honest. And so I am on certain supplements. I am doing some different lifestyle changes to try to manage that, but hopefully within a few months I will actually have a surgery for endometriosis, which my cousin had, and she said it about changed her life. So I am very, very hopeful that that would make a big impact on my life, because I feel like when you hear about PCOS, when you hear about endometriosis, you just think infertility, but really there's so much more to it than that. There are so many symptoms that I deal with on a daily basis that affect my life that I kind of just deal with. I'm just kind of one of those people that I'm like, oh, I can just deal with these things, especially because a lot of these symptoms that I deal with are like manageable individually, but stacked up all together, it really does affect my everyday life. So I'm hopeful not only that this surgery could potentially help me get pregnant, but also that I can just manage these everyday symptoms a little bit better. My hope is that I would get this surgery like end of summer, early fall, and then I would give myself about another year and a bit to get pregnant naturally. And if I am not pregnant by, I guess, like January 2025, then Ryan and I would start an adoption process. We would love to have an infant, but I also am very open to adopting siblings. I know Ryan does not personally want to adopt like older kids. There are unfortunately, some issues that can come with that, but we would absolutely be open to adopting like probably 5 and under, especially if there are a couple siblings there. I would love to be able to take some kids out of the system if I could. So who knows, perhaps even if I do get pregnant biologically, we would still adopt a child, especially because I am turning 31 this year, and I know it doesn't really matter in the long run, but I did always want to be done having kids by about 35 or so. Of course, I will take whatever I can get right now, but I could see us having like one biological kid and then maybe adopting 1 or 2. So we'll just see where life takes us. I'm definitely open to many different scenarios. But I would ask for your prayers for me and for Ryan and for all those struggling with infertility, because it is just a different form of grief that I think a lot of people don't understand. And then I do feel bad a lot of days because I am so unbelievably blessed to have Ryan as my husband, and I do have a couple friends who very much would love to find someone. They are single and they are at a point in life where they just want to get married and have a family, and they are struggling to find someone. So then I feel guilty because I know they don't have that partner, and I am so grateful to have Ryan. But pray for anyone who is struggling with singleness or infertility. It is a very isolating form of grief, I think, both of those situations. Okay, and from Christina, such a great support. I was so happy to meet her a couple years ago. A year ago in North Carolina. So Christina asked, how are you both similar and different for me and Ryan? So the biggest, I think, is just personality. Ryan is extremely extroverted. It's amazing. He just always has something to say. I don't know how, but he's always like telling me new things. He loves to like follow politics and news, which I don't follow at all. I don't like it, honestly, but like he tells me all these things and we can have some really great conversations about what he reads. And I am definitely very introverted, which I don't know if that like comes off in video form because obviously I'm talking nonstop to the camera, but I am very introverted in real life. As I said earlier, like I will be very chatty with somebody who is very extroverted because they like bring that out of me. But if I'm with another introverted person, I really just like don't know what to say, and it exhausts me very much to be around people. I get so tired. Even if I'm having a great time with friends, like it just really wears me out. Whereas someone like Ryan, he gets a lot of energy from that. I love YouTube because I'm talking to a camera. It's like I'm talking to one person, and that's why I loved counseling as well, because it was very one-on-one, or small group at the very least. But I would say I love hanging out in like triple date situation. That's like my favorite kind of situation with like 6 people. I'm comfortable with everyone. We're just hanging out, having a good time, whatever. Because you have 6 people, I don't feel the need that I have to like talk all the time. But I am very much a small group, one-on-one kind of person. I do not like being the center of attention, which again, you're probably like, why do you have a YouTube channel? But I just like pretend like I'm talking to one person, basically. And I like to be creative, so that's why I do like having a YouTube channel. But yeah, I am very introverted. I've worked on it a lot throughout my life. I used to be like a silent introvert for sure when I was a kid, but the world does not really like introverts, so I've forced myself over the years to do things that make me uncomfortable. But yeah, it does wear me out a lot to be extroverted. So that, I would say, is just the biggest difference between us, is we do have very different personalities. We also do have a lot of different interests, but then we do like to spend a lot of time together. So Ryan is a video gamer. I have never been a gamer. I played like Barbie Riding Club, whatever, Frogger. But yeah, Ryan's a big gamer. That's like his main hobby, I would say. And it's kind of nice because he doesn't really have any friends locally aside from like our couple friends, and he is able to talk pretty much every single day to people that live all around the country, friends that he went to college with. So he has a lot more social time than I do, honestly. So he has a lot of those like nerd hobbies. He played Magic the Gathering when he was in college with his friends, and he'll still do a little bit of dabbling in that, like buying and selling those cards. He has those like Warhammer sets, so he has been spending a lot of time painting those. So that's kind of fun for him because he actually is a really good artist, so he can be creative, but it's also like a super nerdy game. So those are kind of his interests, as well as just like reading up about politics and news and things like that. I have a lot of very introverted hobbies. I love to read. Check out my Cozies and Classics channel if you also like to read. So that's probably like the hobby that I spend the most time doing. It relaxes me. I'm trying to find different ways to lower my cortisol levels. And yeah, reading as an introvert, I feel like is the only way that my brain like shuts off. So yeah, I love to read. That's like my favorite thing to do. I also do love to write. And I've been reflecting a lot as I am 30, like what do I really want my like career goals to be? And although I think I will do YouTube to some extent for the foreseeable future, I can't think of a time that I would give it up 100%. But really my career goals are to write and to be a published author. I did write one book that I published myself on Amazon, and unfortunately that kind of put me off from writing for a few years because I spent so much time writing that book and I didn't really make any money from it because I did self-publish it and I didn't do a very good job of marketing it. And so I just was like, oh my gosh, I spent so much time doing that and hardly anybody even read it. But I will never forget how proud I felt of myself when I finished that book and held it in my hands, and I still feel so proud to be able to tell people I wrote a book, because I think a lot of people want to do it, but they just never do it. But I have been reflecting a lot, and that was always what I wanted to do ever since I was a little kid, and I've lost my way as I've gone through life because you just can't really bank on the money of being a novelist. You have to kind of have another career and then ease your way into it. But like I said, I mean, Ryan is able to cover the bills, and so I really have the ability to make that my career again. And so I'm working on a memoir with my dad right now that we will finish up in the next couple months, and then we are going to try to publish it, probably through a Christian publisher because it does have a underlying faith message. But I had been working on another novel before we really dove into the memoir, and I'm about 150 pages into that, and so I really would love to finish that manuscript by the end of this year. That's absolutely a doable goal, I think, for myself. And then next year really get down into the nitty-gritty editing and hope to get that published. So that's definitely the goal, and I'm hoping to, with having a little bit more of a following now, I could get published by an actual publisher, not self-published, because when I first tried to get my book Crossing Worlds published, they wanted to know what my following was on YouTube, on Instagram, and I didn't even have a YouTube at that time, so that does really matter, unfortunately, now. But hopefully with this following, as it grows, tell your friends, like and subscribe, I could actually be in your Barnes & Noble. But anyway, so yeah, I love to read, I love to write, I love to explore new towns, I love like a day trip to a new town. That's like one of my favorite things to do. I love to thrift, obviously. I just love a lot of these like calming activities. I like to sit by the water, you know, like just things that calm my brain, basically. I also was an athlete growing up, and that's something that I really want to get back into over the course of this year, not just to be a healthier person, but I really want to like enter some competitions. I want to join some teams. I want to feel really strong and athletic again. And so that is something that I'm going to be working on. I think I'm going to first sign up for a 5K, but then I would love to do some of these like mud runs and things like that. And that's something too that Ryan and I could do together, because he also would like to get in a position where he's in really, really good shape. And then finally, Christina asked, what is a small thing that the other person does that bugs you? So ideally Ryan would be here to answer this question, but I'll give an example for him. So I just found this out. I think we're pretty good at communicating, but he did say not that long ago, like, oh, it really bothers me that you don't separate like the forks and the spoons, because we have like a shorter fork and then a longer fork. But I don't know, I have like a depth perception issue, 100%. And I have a really hard time when I'm driving, but also like when I am going to put the silverware away, when I'm emptying the dishwasher, it doesn't automatically register to me like which fork is the long one and which one is the short one, if that makes sense, and the same with the spoons. So I just kind of put them in, because otherwise I literally have to take out the forks and like hold them next to each other. But he said that that actually bothers him, that they are not separated. So I have made that extra effort lately to make sure that I am putting the correct forks where they should go and the correct spoons where they should go. So I thought that was kind of funny, because I said to him, I never would have guessed that that would have bothered you, because he's not really like a neat freak kind of person. And for him, honestly, the only thing that like really bothers me is that he gets road rage when he drives and some mean things come out of his mouth. And that's the only thing that I don't like about Ryan's personality. He's gotten a bit better over the years, and I'm extremely thankful for that. But yeah, he gets a little bit mean when he drives sometimes. But I feel like as far as like house cleanliness and things like that, I'm a little bit more of a neat freak than he is. It bothers me faster, but I am also not the kind of person that like can't go to bed if the house is not 100% picked up. So we are the kind of people that kind of like as the days go on, more clutter builds up, and then like today I really need to go and like clean up the house, and then it will slowly build up, and then probably like Friday I'll do the same thing. So we are not the kind of people that like have to go to bed with the house immaculate, but neither of us are also really messy, so we have a good balance that way, I think. But okay, this video is literally going to be so long, so I do apologize for that, but hopefully you were just playing this as you were doing some chores, doing whatever, and I do hope you enjoyed this video. I'll probably do like a longer chit chat video like this like once a month or so. So do let me know down below if you do have any topics that you want me to talk about, especially with my counseling background. I would always love to incorporate more of that here on my channel. So if there's anything you want me to talk about in regards to mental health, just let me know down below and I would be happy to have a little podcast episode about it. But if you like this video, please make sure to give me a big thumbs up and subscribe. It really does help my channel out a lot. Thanks again for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.